Welcome to Your Soul Wisdom, hosted by Yana Amor Manocas. In each episode, we invite you on a transformative journey delving into the profound mysteries and wisdom of the soul. Join us as we explore a wide array of spiritual topics and sacred practices that nurture and heal the soul, from reincarnation and soul contracts to the enigmatic experiences of womb alchemy and astral travel. Our discussions are designed to enlighten, inspire, and deepen your understanding of your own soul's journey. With Your Soul Wisdom, nothing is off limits. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Your Soul Wisdom. Today, we are joined by Marilyn Whall, a renowned medium, mentor, and author from Sydney, Australia, which, you know, with Lauren and Rachel, you just fit right in, okay? Over 20 years of professional experience, Marilyn's work spans across the globe, connecting people with their loved ones in spirit world through evidence-based messages. She has shared stages with prominent figures like James Van Praagh and John Holland, and her book, Knowing a Medium's Journey, offers a deep look into her spiritual path. Marilyn's also very passionate about teaching and mentoring others through her development programs and workshops. Let's all welcome Marilyn Whall to the show.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Nice.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. Oh, okay.
Before you jump in, I do have a story of James Van Praagh, who I had no idea who he was. And then one day my mom's like, please come with me to this convention. And I'm like, okay, fine, right? Because I'm the only one in the family that is in that spiritual world that would say yes. And so she's like, I want to see James Van Praagh. I'm like, I have no idea who that is. And she's like, just come with me. Like everybody knows him. Anyway, long story short, she ended up getting a message from him, which was so dead on. Like, it was like wild. And when he said what he said to her, he's like, there's somebody, in a wheelchair, blah, blah, blah. This is how they were lost, the relationship. And my mom's like, I think that's for me. I'm like, raise your hand. What are you doing? Get up, claim your message. And so before Lauren takes us over, I just want to say, if anyone from Spirit comes through and you feel called to, please let my grandmother speak through you, okay? I'm just kidding.
Well, it's probably a good time for me to run in on the James Van Praagh story briefly, Lauren, before you jump in.
Yeah, go.
I didn't know who James Van Praagh was either. And because today is very much about the trust and the faith, I followed a vision, and that's how I met James Van Praagh. Yeah, I followed a vision, didn't know who he was. And when I met him, I began traveling the world with him. He just sort of took me under his wing and we became best friends. So there you go.
Wait, we can't jump over this. What was the vision?
It was the vision.
Yeah.
I had a vision at the Statue of Liberty. All I was seeing was this. And I said to my husband at the time, I just keep seeing this. I keep having this vision of the statue. And he said to me, honey, that's the Statue of Liberty in New York. And I said, well, I'm going there. And then out of the blue, don't ask me how, I wasn't computer friendly. I don't know whether James Van Praagh's name was mentioned or how I ended up on a Amiga website, upstate New York, and I saw all I could see with James Van Praagh's masterclass back in 2010 was, just New York. And I thought, that's where I'm going. Yeah, and I jumped on a plane and I went.
That is
and like
amazing.
I say, the rest is history.
Wow.
But how on par with today's theme, which is all about trust and faith, and to tie in all your 4 energy in your soul contract, which is all about trust and faith, and how you're just like, yep, I'm going to take this leap and I'm just going to follow and trust the thing that's showing up for me, and how it's played out for you. That is just like such a wild story.
But you shared the story about James Van Praagh first in your intro. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And, knowing Marilyn, that is not the only example where she's done something like that. That's why I was like, we need to talk to her, because she is the living example of complete trust in spirit and of serving spirit as well. So I'll quickly share how I met Marilyn. She's clearly ready to go, so I don't need to take up much time. I had a dream. I had a dream and I saw Marilyn's face. And she said, I know.
Yana can't cope.
I love it. I lived for this. Are you kidding? It's like a tap.
Yeah. So I had a dream and I saw Marilyn's face and she said, I'm here to help you. And so it's like I knew it was mediumistic, whatever. So I Googled, and I mean, Marilyn has gone between New Zealand and Sydney. But I Googled, mediumship mentor Sydney, and then she came up, and then I found her website, and then I emailed her and I said, look, I had a dream about you.
Wow.
And I was wondering if we could just have a chat. Yeah. I was just wondering if we could have a chat because I'm thinking about, working with you. So that is how I met Marilyn. So it's in line with,
Yeah. That's how a lot of
Marilyn
people
is
meet. That's how a lot of people
Is that how you
meet.
find clients? They just I'm curious. Vision of
Asking
Marilyn.
for a friend.
I have had that though. I've had people say that they've dreamt me, and then
Yeah, I don't blame them,
sometimes then they've
Amanda.
seen
Right.
no, and then they've seen my picture, or they've seen say like my so like the web what's it called? A website.
A website.
Wow. Wow.
What time zone are you on?
It's 9 p.m. for Amanda. She's had a whole
Yeah.
day.
Listen.
I'm dying to ask though, because Marilyn, I can't help thinking that there must have been a time preceding this that you had experienced the opposite of this, or were you born trusting and following?
Oh, I've always been different to everybody. I've
Okay.
always been, labeled the black sheep in the family. Yeah, it's just, it's,
Have you
you
always
could
had that faith though of noticing things and
absolutely.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. You could say it's something that's born within you. Yeah, but no, it's just always, it's never fazed me. I was thinking about it before I jumped on the call, and you're probably all very aware that, we all have moments in life when, you're either consciously thinking about making a decision or wanting to make a change. And it's almost like on a physical level, trying to describe it to people that probably don't, act the same way that I do. Just to, backtrack a bit, it's almost like on some level we know in the physical before something is going to happen. And for me, in that moment, it's almost like my whole being just gets encumbered with this. Oh gosh, it's hard to find the words, but it's like something overlaps you. The energy within just explodes and you just go. You just go. And if you've been thinking about something on a conscious level, you just go. There's no full step page, but there's this innate feeling within that you don't doubt it. You just know that you're looked after. And when you act like that in life, you probably all know, I mean, you're in the flow. You're in the flow.
Yeah.
You're not just supported by those in the other world, you're supported everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
What I
Yeah.
find fascinating though, Marilyn, is that, for personalities like me, we sort of need proof before we have the trust. And it's clear from even just seeing you that that is the reverse order that things happen in. So, can you remember your earliest experience of following this?
Sorry to
I don't know what
laugh.
you want to call it, intuition or
Sometimes it's
something?
hard for me to keep a straight face when I'm working, and I'm reminded
Don't,
about
please smile.
stories. No, and I'm reminded and I'm inspired to share things. So, what came to me when you asked me that was, have you ever experienced having everything in place, thinking it's going to be a certain way, and then you've had the rug pulled from under you?
Yes.
Constantly.
Yeah.
That is my life, Marilyn.
It's a collective yes, Marilyn.
Yes. But it's not all bad. Also, sometimes when the rug comes out from under my life, I just think it looks better without the rug. There is also that outcome. So,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just showing us, there's a divine plan or there's a greater force, or, you can try and put it into any category that you want. But for me, if something like that happened, we're not in control of anything. We think we are. Yeah, but we aren't. I'm curious to know when your birthday is, Rachel.
My birthday is the 15th of May.
Okay,
It was
so
1971, if that makes a difference.
so is that Gemini?
No, that is
Taurus.
Taurian.
Like me.
Okay,
Mm.
interesting. I have a Taurus daughter. Yeah, and my mum was Taurus. Interesting. Look, we're all different, we're all here to offer different things to people. Otherwise, to be a bit boring if everyone's way was my way. So, there'd be nothing else to share,
Yeah. Well, I
just,
mean, that's
having
the
the
thing
faith
though.
and having
So
trust. Yeah.
in the conversations I've had, I had never actually looked at Marilyn's soul contract chart. I'm pointing this way because it's on my other screen. So I'd never actually looked at it. And when I looked at her chart, I went, oh my goodness, like she really is embodying the full frequency of trust and faith.
Right.
And, there have been so many examples that I have heard where she, just like the one where she went to the Statue of Liberty, right? So when, that she has a vision or a knowing and then just follows it. And like, we think it's incredible, Marilyn, because honestly, like I don't think any of us have had that level of trust where we've just gone like, I'm going to put everything down and I'm just going to go over there, right? So I think it really is quite incredible the way that you embody that energy. And I don't think everyone has
I
that
do it
experience.
every day. I do it.
Yeah.
I turn my life upside down and inside out, I guess, from other people's perspective. I mean,
Mm.
I just pack up and move countries in a blink. It's just, I had a visitation talking about visions, Lauren. Yeah. I was sitting in a deep meditative state. Gosh, I'm trying to think what year it was. Anyway, it'll come to me. And I don't know whether you all are aware of Mary McKillop, nun, and she's been ordained a saint since she's been in the outer world. But I
She's
was
the only
sitting,
Australian saint.
Yeah.
yeah. So I was sitting quietly one day and I was preparing to go overseas for 4 weeks. And Mary McKillop came to me in solid form. I didn't know who it was, first off. I just heard Mary. I'm sitting there thinking, Mary, Mother Mary, Jesus, Mary. And as she came closer and the form became more solid, I knew that she was a nun. But I still didn't know it was Mary McKillop until I came out of the meditation and I Googled Mary, nun. And anyway, long story short, I went overseas. I thought I was going for 4 weeks and I went for 4 months.
Nice.
You talk about trust and faith. Here I am in America and my visit got extended. And my husband at the time rang me one day. I was at an airport ready to go somewhere else. And he says, do you realize that you can only stay in America for like 90 days? And I said to him, I'm at the airport. I'm going somewhere else today. And it was literally pretty much the day I had to go. I had no idea, I had no idea. I don't sort of live in that world. Yeah, but I do have trust and faith. I was away for 4 months. Here I was thinking that I was going away for 4 weeks. When I came back, I had a suitcase and I pretty much thought, wow, I've lived in this suitcase, it's like my whole world has been here, for 4 months. I don't need anything else. And then through a course of events and, Mary McKillop kept showing up through people commenting to me, coming into my life. And I realized that her tombstone was in Sydney at Neutral Bay. So I went there. Of course, I had to go there and sit at her tombstone. And I picked up a bookmark and I turned it over and she said, we are mere but travellers here. From that day onwards, I sold everything. Probably back in 2012, I got divorced. I got
Oh,
rid of
wow.
every belonging, crystal, Buddha, car, anything. And I felt like I became the bag lady. So yeah, just it was really profound. She just went where she was called. She did what she was called to do. And after that visitation from her, yeah, I sort of felt that my life became very much like that. Yeah.
You still a
Yeah,
bad lady now, Marilyn?
yes, absolutely.
So you don't have a permanent address. You're always moving.
I don't really have a permanent address, no. Yeah, I've just come
Okay.
back to Sydney. I've been here for about 10 weeks. I've been back and forwards between Sydney and New Zealand for probably 8 years. Probably spent four, if you add them up, four there, four here, or somewhere else. Yeah.
What's interesting is your whole life is led by this faith and trust, right? You're just like, I'm just going to sell everything and just see where the wind takes me. And I feel like for maybe all of us and probably most of our listeners, we've probably had maybe one or two huge leaps of faith that we've taken, blind leaps of faith that we've taken in our lives. I mean, I can think of an example for each one of us here that I personally know, but you live your life that way. Every day, every part of your life is in that space. Have you had moments where you felt like, oh no, this is not right, or you felt worried, or you didn't feel faith or trust or any of that?
Oh, look, just like everybody, I mean, I've had a moment where, yeah, I don't have a house. I'm a bag lady. I'm homeless. But it's just been a moment. And, James Van Praagh, great friend, really great to have a chat with, great to sort of remind me about things. And, it's an old pattern, it's conditioning, it's just, what we're taught in this world. I'm always looked after. I could tell you some incredible stories about how I'm looked after. I get to go to New York, I get to stay in homes for people that I've read for. You know, they just tell me whenever you're in New York, just email me, the doorman's waiting for you. I stayed in New York at this home for this lady that I read for, upstate New York, didn't know who she was. Anyway, we connected. Her mum came through and she said to me, if you're ever in New York, she couldn't thank me enough for, giving her a free reading. And she said, whenever you're in New York, just email me. So I did. I thought, okay, I was staying in this pretty sort of average hotel. And I emailed her and I said, hey, I am in New York and I'm staying in this hotel. She goes, oh, well, just, go here. Here's the address. She said, we're in Zurich. We're not in New York at the moment. The doorman's waiting for you. I got to their apartment. Seriously. I thought, man, I'm going to sleep on the floor because there's no way I'm going to be able to put this bed back together. It was just fine. There was millions of cushions and satin, and I'm thinking, wow, how am I going to put this bed back together? Yeah, so just some people say being rewarded doing the spirit's work. Yeah, I don't see it as I don't know, scary or yeah.
Yana, when you were
Marilyn has
saying that
homes all
all
over the
of us,
world. Yeah.
yeah,
All,
how
you
you're
know.
saying that all of us have had those leaps of faith. I think so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And I know that too. And I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone, but I do believe that with all of those leaps of faith, there was a level of discomfort for all of us for some time that caused us to do the leap of faith. And what I find so remarkable about Marilyn is she seems to have sort of circumvented how you don't have to do the drama first
Well,
or
listen,
something like that. I'm
she's
like, tell us that magic recipe.
I've spent a lot
Because,
of years seeking and searching.
okay,
My journey's taken me to 7 days of silence, 11 hours of meditation, no eye contact, no speaking. I hungered sort of
mm,
truth sitting with the Indian philosophies for a lot of year. So, to do the work that I do, it was always to get the evidential proof in a session. And I guess that's why communicating with those in the other world, was going to give me that. Like, your Nan, and I can describe her and tell you about her and things like that. So there was always going to be that, me getting that yes, you know. reading on a psychic level, well, mediums are all psychic and there's a place for it, guidance, direction. And, as someone who teaches, I guess I try and educate my students to be able to work on a psychic level with past, present, to get the yes, yes, to keep working that muscle. So anything that's predictive's got a good chance of being close to, 90, 100%. Okay. But getting back to what you asked me, and I've lost my train of thought, so just jog me my memory.
Well,
Oh, the drama. No,
yeah,
the drama.
or we said
That's
to have
right.
to do
Yeah,
this dog and
no.
pony show
Look,
to sort of
look,
justify our leaps of faith, or we need to get ourselves into a frenzy before we can do it. But you don't seem to do that. But to be honest, with what your answer has also told me is you've done an enormous amount of work. You have put in endless hundreds of thousands of hours of solitude, focus, stillness. No wonder you're like this.
Yeah.
Like to start off with, I thought you were some miracle woman who had been born like this, but now I can see that you perhaps had a disposition and you have done all of
I've
the work.
seeked and searched my whole life. I've seeked and searched. I'm skeptical about a lot of things. Unless I have a direct experience of anything, I don't have an understanding of it, and I won't offer that to other people unless I've experienced it. Yeah, absolutely. But I've listened to Eckhart Tolle, I've sat in satsang, so much about just being present, trying to understand the mind, how, the mind can get carried away with a story. And, before you know it, you're in this, rabbit hole and it's not really happening, but the mind's created something. So, just coming back to the present. So, yeah, I guess I've been at it for a long time. Yeah, but I left home when I was 18. I got on a plane in New Zealand. I didn't know anyone in Australia. I just wanted to go. I wanted to leave New Zealand. I was 18. It's a long time ago. Probably what? I don't know, whatever, how many years ago. It's a long time ago, 50 years ago or something, okay? And I got on a plane, and from that day, there was a girl getting on the plane that was calling my sister's name. And I was always called my sister's name, and my sister was always called my name. And I looked at this girl and I said, "Oh, that's my sister." She was crying, I was crying. Back in those days, they probably wouldn't do it now. The air hostesses decided to sit us together because we were both crying. I told this girl that I was staying in a hotel when I got off the plane in Roslyn Gardens and somewhere in King's Cross. I didn't even know that was a red light district. And she said to me, "Oh, you can't," she said to me, "You can't stay there." It's just like, you couldn't possibly stay there. And
No,
she
for
said,
real.
"Come and stay with me for the night." Well, this complete stranger that had been calling me my sister's name, I didn't go to Roslyn Gardens to the hotel. I went to her place. When I woke up in the morning, she lived in Redfern. Well, I didn't know about Redfern either.
Wait, I don't know about that either.
Redfern
Well,
at that time would have been a different, like Roslyn Gardens is seriously red light, like 100% red light district. Redfern is, let's just call it a high crime rate, high crime.
Yeah, you would be you wouldn't walk
suburb.
through there by yourself. No.
Got it.
No.
Okay.
At that time, different.
no.
Yeah.
It's still a big dodge now. But yeah.
But I stayed the night there, and then the next day I got up, and one of my sisters had a friend in Sydney, and she said, if you get stuck or you want to reach out to someone. So I messaged this girl. She was horrified to know where I was and said she'd come pick me up straight away. Well, she lived in Double Bay, so look, go
Nice
figure
area.
the contrast of that. Yeah, and that's how my journey started in Australia.
Okay.
You know what's
Yeah,
crazy
taking a leap of faith.
is that I did the same thing. I got on a plane when I was 20 years old and I flew from Brisbane to LA. I knew one person. I packed up into 2 suitcases. I sold everything and I just did it. And I went home to get my visa and I went back and that was it. And there was such, like, you look back, like, I don't know, Marilyn, if you relate to this, like, you look back and you're like, oh, I was being set up to do this. Like, this wasn't blind faith. This was actually, okay, I've had this desire to go to America, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then there was a Ouija board involved, and then there was a psycho ex-boyfriend involved, and then I'm on a plane, and then I meet a New Zealander, and I'm on my first plane. I'm on long haul, and I'm like, ah, and she's holding my hand, sweetheart, it's okay, and I'm like, what an angel that was put in my path to help me. And then I get, I also ended up in a very dodgy part of town. It's okay, we survived, right? But it was like when I look back, I had these steps. Do you feel like you kind of have those precursors before you have a vision or an inkling to do something?
Look, I feel really naive. I feel really naive in every part of life. When I wrote my first book, Knowing, back in 2015, it came out, I guess I got to look back on my life and I really sort of got to understand how my life had been or was. All of that, it all started to make sense. But listening to your story, I'm pleased to meet you because there's another me here.
I have done some very questionable things in my life based on pure, like, I'm just going to go balls to the wall and do this. And I don't know why I'm doing it, but here we go. I arrived here with no job. Okay, I am immigration, don't listen to this. I forged documents to get, like, bank documents to get here. And I arrived with like $100. And you know what? There were angels set up to take me in, give me work. I found an accommodation. It was so bad. I won't even get it, but I had a roof over my head. I had a job within 3 days of landing. It's just these, and that always happens.
Yeah.
It's that trust. I can't describe that level of trust. Like, I've ended up stranded in Turkey and with 3 children, young children under the age of 7 at the time, and had no currency, no visa, nothing. Met this beautiful hunkin man who spoke Turkey, who got us accommodation, and I don't know what would have happened, but it was that trust in, you know what, I'm just going to keep trusting these process. And do I tell my children to do that? Would I tell my children to get on a plane and fly to, probably not, but I'm not going to be able to stop them, I know, because that's my genes. But there is an element of like, oh shit, now I have to really settle down a little bit because now I'm setting an example. I can't just go do whatever I want now. So how did you navigate through that with your daughter or children?
Well, setting an example, being the example. Wow, your children will be the ones that come to you and say, "Hey, Mum, I'm going overseas." You might have a moment of anxiety and meltdown, but you're going to realize that this your life was the same. You're going to wish nothing more than the
Oh,
best.
there is a whole different level. Like, I can get myself into shit and get it out, but like when my daughter's 18, I'm like, she can burn the house down now without much effort. I don't know how she's going to handle. Yeah. But anyway, I will trust the process because that's all I can
Well,
do.
James always reminds me that, we've all got our own separate paths. Yeah, and you've got to stay in your lane, as much as a mother. I'm a mum, I'm a
Yep.
grandma,
Mm-hmm.
and let's not go there. Um, they say that your children are your greatest challenges in life, but just recently that book was presented to me, and it's a book about let them,
Them.
let me.
Mm.
Let them, let me. Great mantra for a mum going through some anxiety. Just let them, yeah, let me. Yeah. And again, it
Mm.
comes back to that greater force. And, we're not really in control of anything. We can support, we can listen, we can offer ways, not always accepted. You could be shut down very, very quickly, and then you realize, oh, I need to step back. Yeah. But I think one of the things that happened for me recently, with one of my children was seeing the way that their life is and, me being so much older than them and having to remind myself that I was that age once and I probably lived my life very much like that, in a fast lane. So
Mm.
yeah, just reminding myself, that I was that age at one time. Yeah, but we've all got a path to walk, you
Mhm.
know, and you talk about James is very big on fair and love. You want to live in fear, you want to live in love. you know. And,
Marilyn, you said something interesting. Sorry to jump in, but you said that you mentioned control. And that's one thing actually. It's like, to me, having known you, like you don't try and control anything. You really do just go with the flow, even if something is not your preference, right? So there's something about being present in the moment and accepting what is. Have you ever sort of had
absolutely,
a struggle
absolutely.
with trying to control anything?
There's no point. I mean, the most recent one, here with you, the most recent one, about 10 or 11 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, I was in New Zealand and I just had to get back. There was this overwhelming sense that just exploded and it just overlapped me, and I had to get back. Probably took me a couple of weeks to, get back. And so in the last 10, 12 weeks, my son's cat, Fluffy, little ragdoll, 11 years, part of the family, precious to all of us. I got to visit him since I've been back and hug him. Within those couple of months, my son thought that, he was going to die. He just knew. My son said, Mum, he's going to die. And I'm thinking, oh, he looks okay today. 2 weeks ago, my daughter's cat, she's been looking after it, so it's become hers while I've traveled, passed away, 18 years old.
Wow.
Now, let me
Ooh.
tell you this. So, I had this big explosion, had to get back to Sydney, didn't know why, didn't need to know why, I just had to go. So both cats have passed in that time. The morning the cat's organs were shutting down at 2 o'clock in the morning, my daughter and I were sitting on the bed with the cat. And that morning, you know, if I'd ever thought I needed to be here to support my daughter for the cat's passing, and if I thought I had to be here, God, I love that cat. I miss her. I'm going to cry if I talk about her for too long. That morning at 6 o'clock, my alarm went off. Well, I didn't really sleep. She slept on top of me. I had to leave and go and teach a 5-day retreat.
Mm.
Now, who do you think planned for me not to be here for that? Come on. Of all people on the earthly world, you know, there would have been a time I probably would have fought tooth and nail, to be here, to be part of that, to go to the vet to support my daughter. But 3 months ago, it was all put in place for me to do a 5-day retreat. Do you think the cat knew at 2 o'clock in the morning, that I was going to go somewhere? You know, I wasn't able to be here, but it was
Mm.
okay. I had to go and do what I had to do. Had to be okay with it, you know. 4 o'clock, I was on a call saying goodbye to her. 5:30, I was saying, hello, how are you today, to a group of 10 women, you know. You know, my daughter had
Mm.
no one to be with her. It was the hardest day of her life. And then, her partner came and was able to be with her. And then I was on the call saying goodbye to the cat. But I wasn't physically able to be here. I haven't attached a story to it. It would have been probably too much pain if I had tried to figure out why or whatever. But I
Mm.
work with people in the spirit world and I work with people in the earthly world. And it's not uncommon, for people to be a carer for someone on the earth who's now in the spirit world. And, they got up to go to the bathroom. And in
Yeah.
that moment, the person passed. And,
Hmm.
they live with these regrets. But, for me, I have a greater understanding, and there's always a bigger picture or a bigger reason, you know. And if you try and understand how hard it is for someone who's going to pass to the other world, to pass when they've got a family member holding their hand and they're
Yeah.
crying, hey, I don't want, yeah, they're going to go when you get up and leave the room.
Yeah.
So there's always so much more to
Correct.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
But,
true. Very
we think
true.
we're in control. Gosh, if I had planned it, I would have wanted to have been here for the cat. I would have wanted to have carried her. I would have been the one that wanted to take her to the vet, and patted her. It wasn't to be. Wasn't to be. Yeah, for whatever other reasons. Maybe it was the biggest lesson my daughter's going to go through in life, you know, to do what she had to do.
Can I share a story? You're in
Yeah.
here because you're bringing back a lot of memories. My grandmother had 3 daughters, 15 grandchildren, 23 great-grandchildren by the time she was 88 when she passed. And she lived for every one of us kids. Her every day was devoted to just doing everything and anything she could for us. And she was never alone. So especially during COVID, she was very social, got out there. But then COVID in 2020 locked her in the house. And so we would all like take turns going to make sure somebody was always with her. And then there was this unfortunate event where she fell. She was trying to open the door for my cousin. My brother comes. They take her to the emergency room. Long story short, they admitted her and she was fine. But all this stuff, they said 2 days later, she passes away. Okay. At the emergency room. And now during COVID, not the emergency room, they had admitted her. But during COVID, you couldn't see. We couldn't get FaceTime set up, nothing. And so my whole family, we were all just devastated. I knew a month prior, I was mourning the loss of her. I was like, she's going to die. I knew it. I always felt that she had lived as long as she lived because she was waiting for me to have a child. And I was pregnant with a child. She didn't know. And so when she passed, my family was devastated because we were all so close. And I remember thinking to myself, the first thing that came to mind was, this was the only way for her to pass. She needed to be away from us because we were with her around the clock. There was no way that she was going to leave us in that pain or having that experience of finding her, of being with her, of any of that. She needed that space. And my family still struggled with that because obviously, like, she was the matriarch of our family. She was everything. But from immediately the first moment, I was equally sad and devastated, but equally understood this was her spirit's way of setting it up so she can cross over without us having to take on more, I guess. And so that story you shared with your cat is the same exact thing.
I have a counselor friend, and she put it in an interesting way one day with me. And it's almost like we don't ever consider those that are passing to give them their space with no one around them so that they can process or have a moment. Yeah, and it was really, there was a light bulb moment for me when she shared that. I mean, hover around them seems like a horrible way to describe it, but that's the word I heard. So I'm going to use it. But yeah, to look at it a different way. And, have you ever thought that someone that's transitioning to the other world, have you ever thought that they need some space around them? Yeah. And to me, that was a really beautiful way to look at it. Yeah, give them the space. And you used the word space as well when your Nam passed. Yeah. But we're never alone.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. If I could have picked, I would have, I selfishly would have wanted to be there.
Well, if I could have picked, I would have been the one to take the cat. But hey, again, I've been shown many, many times if I've ever thought that I physically needed to be in a space or someone's presence to take control or to look after a situation, the cat showed me again that, it's just, can I swear?
Yes, you can swear. We swear.
It's just bullshit. It's just a concept. It's just a concept. Yeah. And I got shown it again. I'm a mum. I got shown it again, just 2 weeks ago, that if I ever thought I physically need to be in someone's space in the same country, in the same home, well, Jesus, I got shown again. It's just an illusion. Yeah. So, I'm looking at it again. It's not the first time it's happened. Yeah.
Marilyn, you are reflecting this back beautifully for me. And I wonder if for everyone else, if you've had the experience of listening to Marilyn and realizing that everything has worked out for you as well. Do you mean over and over and over again, everything always works out? There is no reason for us to not trust. Is it the same? I don't know, Amanda. I can't read you. Wow.
What do you mean you can't read me?
Amanda, you'd be very quiet. Come on, the spotlight's on you.
And no, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't actually know where.
No,
I mean,
it's
I would
not
naturally
late.
assume you're up to speed with trust because you're so far along your spiritual path, but I don't know what your relationship is with this kind of thing.
For me, I guess I am. I'm in a place now where I don't really second guess what I do. I don't really second guess what's coming. I just do it. And the more and more I do it, the easier and easier it becomes. I'm not in a place, like I did say before, like back in the early days for me, I did suffer from what I called stage fright. I did suffer from a lot of sort of anxiety and panic. I went from being really sort of in the place of trust when I was much younger. And then for me, as I grew older and went into my sort of 20s and became a parent, a mum, that kind of changed because I had a massive sense of responsibility and I started looking at everybody else's lives in a different way as well. So when people came to me for readings, I felt very responsible, for what was coming out, and I had to be this or I had to be that. And then I kind of like, I don't know, but you know what it could be, of course. Menopause could have just said two fingers up to that. And I don't really care about anything or anyone. Do you know what I mean? I'm good,
I do.
you know, but but when Marilyn was just talking about sort of like death and how people pass, yeah, I'm very much aware of that. Like I thought for all my life that we would have been with my parents when they passed. There's five of us. I thought at least one of us would have been with them when they passed, and none of us was. Um, and that was a shocker for me. And I mean, like for my mum, I couldn't believe that she would have gone without me. But I mean, I've said this before, but I also realized, as Marilyn said, that if I had been there, oh, it would have been a mess.
Yeah.
If I had been there and realized that she was going, because it was unexpected in that sense, um, I would have been an absolute mess. I would have said to her, not a damn chance, because I will dig you up again, dig you up, embalm you, and sit you at the dinner table.
Actually, and
You know,
Marilyn,
but
Amanda's parents passed both in a very short amount of time, right, Amanda?
yeah, one day after the next. One
Yeah.
day, my dad the Sunday, my mum the Monday. But I learned, like I said before, I learned a lot of things from their passing. But I also, have also people that around me passed. My aunt passed, and when my aunt passed, I think my mum was with her in the room. And then my mum said she was going out to go and get something, or she was going to go to the bathroom, or she was going to go and do something. And as soon as she left, my aunt passed. My father-in-law, he did the same. My husband was with him, and then he left. And by the time he got home, just as he opened the door, his mum opened the door and said, your pops has gone. And he just left the hospital. So they do that sometimes. People will do that because, and then I also remember my dad saying to me a long time ago, he did this sort of like spiritual, it was called spiritual mourning, and he had said to me that when I go, do not mourn me, he said. Do not cry, do not mourn me. And I couldn't understand why he was saying this, but I was about, I don't know, 18, 19 years old at the time, or maybe 20, early 20s. And I was like, why would you say that? Of course I'm going to cry. And he said to me, because if you do, you will keep me here. He says, you will keep me here. And he says, and I want to go. And so, it's a tough time. Do you know what I mean? When it did happen, I tried very much to honor that, you know. But yeah, it was very, 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 it's very interesting how people choose to go, isn't it?
I was suspended in air. I was in an aeroplane of all places between the worlds in the clouds when my mum passed. That's a long story. I had a premonition. I heard a voice, a very, very loud voice. I don't hear the spirit world like me talking now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if I get a premonition or I get a warning, it's always like this loud voice like this, okay? So long story short, I mean, I knew my mum was going to pass after that premonition, but I was actually in an aeroplane on the way to see my mum. She was in hospital and they didn't think I'd get there in time. And I got really agitated and asked the air hostess what the time was because I wanted to check the time when I got there because I
Yeah.
really felt that this that was happening within. My mum was
Yeah.
passing. And when I think about it with the work that I do, I mean, come on, between the worlds, you know. And apparently my mum hadn't spoken for a couple of days, and my name was the name that she called out before she went to the other world. But come on, I was in an aeroplane, suspended
Mm.
between worlds. I mean, to me, that was really a perfect place for me to be. As my mum made her transition, I was very aware of
Yeah.
it, what I was feeling. Yeah. But it's not uncommon for people to pass when you leave the room. And
Mm.
sadly, it's, one of the biggest regrets that people have. And, for what reason, really? For what reason? When you start dissecting and you start trying to understand and look at, giving them the space and, them wanting to go, without everyone being around them, them having that moment. Yeah, it's a big subject to talk about.
It is, because I was also going to add in, like I explained, like the rest of them know, that when my mother-in-law passed, we were all there. There would have been about was about 4, 7. There was 8 of us in the room, when she passed. I actually saw her pass, like leave the body, and but I treasure that. I really do treasure that. It was such an honor to be part of that beautiful process. And I mean, it was a difficult time, obviously, but then she got to a point whereby I guess she was just literally slipping away. So she wasn't in pain or anything like that. But I think it was a beautiful process that to be able to witness that, I mean, to
Yeah,
be a witness. So I think, in some ways it works sort of both ways. And I learned different things from the different processes. They were meant to happen as they were meant to happen. And I learned different things from them. Having said that, I guess well, yeah, I was about to say, you really don't want to be stood up in Sainsbury's while somebody you love is passing, or stood up in Walmart, and you're like at the till. It's like it does matter, I think, about where you are and what you're doing, I think. And I think, if I was away, but if I had gone out of the room to come back and find that they'd passed, I'd be a bit
That
pissed.
happened to me, Amanda. So no, no. So my dad, okay, so
Uh,
we knew he was going to pass, and my sister and I needed to take my mum to do something and come back, and my brother sat with him. Okay.
yeah.
So on the day that he passed, he did go to the hospice, but we had been taking care of him at home. And so we needed to get mum close so she could stay there the night. Well, because we knew it was coming, but we didn't know how long it would be. And but we would, my brother calls us and goes, "Get back here, like now." Like now.
Mm.
So we like hightailed it, all the way back. And we were at the security doors downstairs when Dad passed away. And so my brother was there, but the three of us weren't. So we walked back
Weren't.
into the room, and I held his hand, and because he had motor neuron disease, they have fasciculation. So there's these twitches in their nerves, right? So I held his
Yeah.
hand, and he still had those going.
Still
So he like had
moving.
just
Yeah.
gone. Yeah. But what was I going to say? Before we left to take mum, I went and I gave him a kiss. And then
Mm.
I started to walk out. Sorry, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
And then
We're all going
I
to
was
cry.
like,
Yeah.
sorry,
Mm.
sorry. But I walked
Mm.
to the door and I went, I've got to give him another kiss. So I went back and I went and gave him another kiss. So I think I knew on some level. And I really think that he chose to not have us go through that, or maybe it was going to be too hard for him to leave, like, we've been
Yeah.
talking about. But, either way, it's all perfect, right? Because
It
they do
is.
choose. They do
It
choose.
is. They do choose. But as soon as you
Yeah,
guys walk back in the building,
I know.
he left. You know what I mean? He probably passed you on the way out. Do you know what I
I
mean?
know.
But I do remember, like you said, that my mum said to my brother the night he left after my dad had passed, and we told her, we'd all gone there to tell her when he was leaving, because we'd left him there with his partner then at the
Mm,
time. And she said to him, make sure you lot look after each other.
mm.
And That was the last thing she ever said. Now,
Yeah.
I guess she knew without, oh, she knew, you know what I mean? She was that way inclined, but we never knew. We didn't, because, but my brother never told us that until afterwards,
Mm.
you know, so didn't know.
So many things to share. Like the voice that I heard, I wasn't talking to my mum when I heard the voice. Like my mum and I had a difference of opinion, which wasn't uncommon. And I was living
Mm,
in Australia, my mum in New Zealand. I mean, I was 18 when I left home, so I really had very much of a phone relationship with my mum my whole life.
mm,
So my
mm,
mum and I weren't talking, and this voice said to me, "Your mum died today." It was so clear.
Mm.
And I thought,
mm,
wow, how would I feel if my mum died and I wasn't talking to her, because of the readings that I do and the work that I do. So I picked the phone up and rang my mum, and my mum
mm.
answered. So from that minute onwards, I knew it was a premonition.
Yeah.
And I told my brothers and sisters who all think, that I'm crazy, I've got 10 arms and 12 legs and 6 heads and whatever, that I'm just mad. Um, but that premonition and my mum answering, I knew that my mum was going to die. I just knew. So that gave me an opportunity to go back and forwards to see my mum before she passed.
Past.
Talking about the cat, not long after that, my mum's cat scratched her arm and she ended up in hospital with a really bad infection.
Mm.
And it was all downhill for my mum from then onwards. So, I kept seeing this play out. So, I'd go back and visit. Anyway, me being me, and knowing that my mum was going to pass, I think I wrote about it in a signs section of my book. The number 11 kept presenting to me. I
Mm,
was in Sydney one night and I said to my husband, we were just out, it was someone's birthday, and I said to him, this is me. I said to my husband, I need to get on a plane and go to New Zealand now. And he said, I'll go home and get your passport and I'll wait for me. I'll take you to the airport, get a
Wow.
ticket. And I went.
wow.
And it was, we was going to land. It was 11 o'clock. It was 11 degrees. It was seat 11, whatever, just number 11.
Mm,
Sometimes spirit comes in for me. My voice starts to change, excuse me. So I said to my family, with the premonitions, it's either the 11th day, the 11th month, 11 o'clock. I was trying to piece it together. Okay. Well, my mum passed on the 1st to the 11th. So,
Mm.
that was interesting.
there's your ones.
Yeah.
I got the call in Australia at something like 11 o'clock, but I actually did get to see my mum pass, Amanda, when you were talking about it. I actually got to sit with my mum. I'd gone to visit her one time, and my sister
Mm,
was caring for my mum, and she said to me, will you sleep with mum's, the first day I got there, she said, I need to have a rest. And, then
mm.
she talked to me about, they get this rattle before they go to the other world, and I'm sitting
Mm.
there thinking, I'm not sleeping with her. I'm going to sleep down the hall. And my sister's like, I said, no, not ready for that. I said, you need to stay with her for one more night. The next day I was okay. And I
Yeah.
said to her, all right, I'll sleep with her. So my sister and I were both laying on the bed with my mum, talking to my mum. And my mum started talking to all of her loved ones in the other world. And there was this mist that just came. There was just this mist. It was almost like my mum became one with the pillow. My sister's not into this. She looked at me and she's like, she knew something was going on.
Going
And
on. Yeah. Yeah.
the presence, the peace, the love, it's indescribable. And then I asked my mum, what's it like there? Because I wanted to know. And my mum sat up like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Her eyes were wide. She was back in the body. And she was like, get away from me, you stupid whatever. What are you talking about? And my mum stayed on the earth for a few more 4 months. She had a few more things to tidy up. Yeah. So even though I was in the air and I missed the passing, I did have that moment.
That moment. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And funny enough, that happened with my dad when he was passing. The day before he passed, we spent the whole day with him and he kept on, he was he kept on waking up and just looking above our heads and then literally coming up out of, for somebody that had no energy, he couldn't move at all, anything like that. He kept on coming out. He kept pointing, like pointed above our heads, and was just, his eyes were wide open, and he was just kept pointing, and he just rose up out of the bed like that in the first
Yeah.
that. And then I think my mother-in-law did that as well. So I knew she was traveling. We call it
Between the
traveling.
worlds. Between the
Yeah,
worlds.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Moving
yeah, yeah.
between the
So I
worlds.
knew, yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew she was
Yeah, my
traveling.
dad did that, and he was seeing all sorts of numbers. So I was convinced I was going to win the lottery at some point. It just hasn't happened.
Did you take down those numbers? Did you write them down?
So do you connect that to doing soul contract readings
Yeah,
now,
I
Laura?
was just about to say, because they're the really, the work that we work with, it's the building blocks of creation. So maybe he was saying more about, that sacred work, basically.
Working with
Yeah.
numbers, yeah.
Maybe.
Takes a long time to decipher some of the messages when they're given in some of the
Yes.
ways that they're given.
So can I ask you a question? Because when you when you were
I feel like the focus has been on me.
well, you're
Yes, it's
you're
meant to be about you.
You're the game.
we want all
We're
your
happy to not be on the
information.
hot seat.
But okay, when you said that you were talking to your mother and you said, what's it like on the other side? Right. The first thing I thought, first of all, my mind went to you actually asking her that after she had passed. That's what I thought you were going to, but you were saying like she came back into the body and she's just like, it's not my time, leave me alone, essentially.
Yeah.
But
She was between the worlds.
so so in your mediumship, have you ever connected with spirits on the other side who actually share information about what it's like or anything that's like out of this world?
Absolutely. So my second book's in the last stages of editing, and I've written a chapter about gosh, I can't even think what the chapter's about, but it's like love beyond love. It's indescribable. I actually had a mentor in the UK, and she's in the spirit world, and we would have lots of chats, and she would rack me over the knuckles for my description of the other world and what I used to think it was. And let's not talk about that because she'll probably rack me over the head right now. But she said to me after one of the sessions, she said, when you go to sleep tonight, she said, why don't you ask the spirit world if you can come into their world and learn more about their world? Well, that night I had a profound experience. It happened straight away. I asked, I went to sleep, and I remember waking up the next day, and as I asked the question and went off to sleep, I remember seeing all these hands and going into the other world, just all these hands welcoming me, guiding me. And the next thing I remember, I was this silhouette standing in the light. So when I woke up the next morning and I sat at the computer like you do, trying to write the experience, for about 3 days, I felt like I was encased in this bubble and I was all the colors of the rainbow. It was euphoric. Honestly, it was the most euphoric experience that I've ever experienced, I don't even know how to find a word to describe it. And it's been the hardest chapter for me to sort of nail and get right into words. Because when I was sitting at the computer trying to have a total recall of the experience, it was like I was the silhouette standing in the light. And in my new age days of working in new age stores, everyone used to hug, kiss, peace, love, and light, man. I used to think when I sat in silence, Jesus, what a load of bullshit that is, because I went through this whole stage of being a fraud. It's been a fraud, everyone used to hug
Yeah.
everyone and say, love and light and whatever. Anyway, didn't sit well with me, but I did. I went through a whole stage of looking at, the whole fraud part of us. Anyway, light and love have taken on a very different connotation to me now, because when I try and recall that experience and I know that I was a silhouette standing in the light, oh my God, I could feel the tears coming. It was just beauty beyond anything that I could put into words. So I've tried to describe it as I have a love of mosaic vases or mosaic. So I've tried to describe it in the aspect of loving and looking at mosaics and seeing another part of us. It was like simultaneous experience all at once. And it was almost like being this mosaic vase, if you can imagine the beauty, fractured, cracked, but whole. You get me? The other
Mhm.
aspect of us. Yeah,
Mm.
so it's been the hardest chapter, and my book's ready to go. But on Friday, I got back to that chapter and I'm back on it and dissecting it, just trying to really, describe something that's indescribable. I mean, you're talking about, what is it like in the other world? When I communicate with those in the other world, I know that their intelligence is far beyond our limited way of understanding. It's a miracle how they can impress images upon us, images that I can interpret. Is it like that in the other world? Well, I don't know. I don't
Ah,
think so.
so
Not
so
after
Marilyn,
my not after my experience of standing in the light, pure consciousness, pure love, pure light. Sorry to interrupt you, Amanda.
no, 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 no. Sorry, I was interrupting you. So I
Because,
was so
yeah,
I have a question for you.
yeah.
So because when you spoke about the other beings, are you are you sure? Are you clear on where you've gone, where you went to? Could you have gone somewhere else as opposed to going to that place where people go when they say when they pass? Could you have gone somewhere else? Could you have gone to, say, another dimension? Could you have gone to the place where there are other beings that communicate with you and that support you on this journey here, which isn't necessarily where people go when they pass? Do you know where you were?
Oh my goodness, I've dissected every pocket and every envelope and every corner. There's only pure love in the other world. But in saying that, Amanda, there's worlds within worlds.
Mm,
Apparently, we reside with our mindset.
hmm.
So, if you try and understand worlds within worlds or layers or levels,
Hmm.
there is many different dimensions.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll give you a little example of me sitting one day in meditative state, saying to the spirit world, are all those stars that come out at night the spirit people that have passed to the other world? This is what it's like for me. This is how I live, trying to
Mm,
understand things. And when I came out of that deep state, Spirit said to me, there's many different planets and galaxies out
yeah,
there. And I'm thinking,
correct.
well, that didn't answer what I asked. But then that intrigued me to realize that there's just so much more going on that I have no awareness of, you know, Mars,
Yeah,
Venus, Jupiter. So,
yeah. And then
just,
some. Different
yeah,
star
but there's
systems. Yeah.
yeah, but look, if I was to describe worlds within worlds, when the spirit leaves the body, whether you convalesce, the astral, the etherical, the many layers that we've talked about as humans, or we try and
Mm,
label, we try and understand. I'm under the understanding that, my philosophies have changed over the years. But my understanding is we can move through the worlds in the other world, just like we can move through this world. Our consciousness, our mind state can change. Okay,
mm,
you with me? Yeah. I don't believe that people are trapped. I don't believe that there's lost souls. But what I know is that everybody's got a different purpose to walk on the earth, and it might not be the same as what I've come here to offer. Okay.
mm,
My understanding, and I've had many lessons from spirit. I've got phone calls to come to houses because, they think that there's, a lost soul in the house and they want a house
hmm.
clearing. I can do that. But hey, if I get the call, I know there's a lesson to learn. So off I go. Okay.
Yeah.
What I know is those in the other world know that I can communicate with them. And they've
Mm,
explained to me that imagine if there's a 98-year-old man and he's lived in a house all of his life.
yeah.
Okay. And then he's gone to the other world and a new family's coming in and moved in. They feel there's a heaviness, there's a residue. There's a
There's
lot of
imprint.
memory
Yeah,
residue,
yeah,
imprint.
yeah.
So I turn up at the house and, sit on the veranda with the man, and he starts to tell me his story. And then,
Mm.
he becomes lighter and he can move between the worlds. It's not that he's stuck. You guys, I listen to some of your podcasts. You talk about living simultaneous lives at once and, all of that. And then there's a whole new subject for me to start to try and understand.
Oh, okay. So, well, you.
Because I don't believe everything I hear. And I'll tell you what the cat taught me 2 weeks ago. You know how everybody uses words frivolously?
Mhm.
No disrespect to anybody. Everybody tells me that the animals cross the rainbow bridge. I don't know. I don't know if I take a lot of notice of what people say until it actually happens. But I had visitation from the cat within, so many hours of her passing. I wasn't going to sleep until she passed. And she came to me in solid form. And she was sitting at the beginning of the rainbow. And she had her little nose up in the air and she was sniffing the air and her little eyes were squinted and she was smiling. But she had a butterfly on her nose. And I have a butterfly on my website, A Memory of My Mum. It's on
Mhm.
my book, Knowing. But since I've been back in Sydney from the retreat, the blanket that came back from the vet was the one that had butterflies all over it, you
Mm.
know? But she actually showed me she was sitting at the beginning of
At the
the
beginning of the Rainbow
retreat.
Bridge. So there's
And
something
that's
to be said for what people have said, or that sometimes is also what other people have seen and experienced,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, like I
as
said,
well.
I feel naive. I feel it takes me a while to catch up sometimes, but I've got to have a direct experience to have an understanding. But I also know that those in the other world can impress images upon us so we can understand, we can interpret, and that's pretty
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting
Beautiful.
because so one of the questions I was going to piggyback off of Amanda was because you have people who have written and shared about their near death experience, and I was, Jesus was there, or the energy of God, or I felt this or I felt that, and I saw this and I saw that. And I think to myself, is everybody going to have the same entrance into the spirit world, or does everyone have the experience that they believe that they're going to have? For example, if I'm super connected to Jesus, my expectation, right, would be that he would be the one that would welcome me to the spirit world, and I may actually see him, let's say one day when that happens. Is that because that is my belief system, or is that because that is actually the process, the steps that are taken for everybody? Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's a big question. Yeah,
I
it's a
only
big
have big questions, Marilyn.
Yeah.
That's it. Like
question.
I need the holy grail on everything.
Yeah, that's a big question. Yeah, belief probably. I'm just thinking of a very well-known man in Australia that had a near-death experience, and he said, "Don't believe what everyone tells you. It was just like a black hole." Well, I know this man. I know this man
Yeah.
personally, and I'm
And he's a big
thinking,
black hole himself. Yeah, that figures.
Please, Amanda.
I didn't say that. He was a very, 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 very wealthy man. I'll leave that with you. I'll leave that with you. Um, yeah, yeah, I'll leave that with you.
But you
Gosh,
know what? In saying that, isn't it like though people come from many different religions, and so they have many different belief systems about
Right.
what happens when they pass, and so it figures that that is what they are going to see, or who is going to present.
what
I
I
don't
know for
think
sure, what I know for sure, no one goes there alone. And when my
mm,
cat came with the little butterfly on the nose, I knew my mum was there with her,
was there with
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
because of the butterflies. And when my mum passed and I got to the hospital to see her, I got in my sister's car and all I could see was butterflies, pretend butterflies. It was a vision that I was getting. The car was full of butterflies. And I said to my sister, "What's the deal with these butterflies?" She burst out crying. She was like, "What did you say?" I said, "Come on, there's butterflies, pretend butterflies. All I could see is butterflies." And she said to me for 2 days before my mum was passing, she was going like this. And my sister said to my mum, "What are you doing?" And my mum said, "I'm trying to catch the most iridescent green butterfly."
Mm.
Happened before my mum passed. So, there's many signs, but Amanda, I know from my personal experience, no one goes to the other world alone. And I read for a lot of people in India and their understanding of reincarnation and oh my goodness, it's just beyond comprehension sometimes for me, their advancement or their knowledge, their wisdom, their opinions, their beliefs. But I often get asked from people in India if they've lost a child, if my wife has another baby, will it be incarnated? And I could never ever tell a mum or a dad or vice versa, a child, that your parents are never going to be there to meet up with you. So then I listen to you guys talk about, living simultaneous lives at once. And then I start thinking about the soul and how, there's aspects of the soul that come back through another. But recently, this little boy in the spirit world, I've been working with this family for about 10 years, and he's an incredible communicator. And when he went to the other world, the family said to me, that they wanted to have another baby, and they'd been told from a seer on the street that they would have a boy and it would be their boy, incarnate. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't know about that. I think you're going to have a girl, and I would hate to tell you, you're never going to meet up with them in the other world, not thinking about simultaneous lives or aspects at that time in the session. But I did tell them that the little girl would have like a big dimple here, and then they told me that the boy had that. Well, when the baby was born, it was a girl, it wasn't a boy, and got the, so I understand there's aspects that'll come back, remind us part of the same soul. And just a few weeks ago, I read for them, and the little girl, I don't know, she's 7 or 8 now, or 5, 6. And she sits in his room and there's a picture of him, and she says to mum and dad, "That's me."
Mm.
And in that moment, the other day, this boy in the spirit world embodied me. And he gave me the awareness and the understanding that he is an embodiment of her. But then he was outside of me as well. So it was really interesting, knowing all of that just through
All of
that.
that is happening.
Yeah. So, every
Magic.
day I get to learn things through my experience of communicating with the other world. They're our greatest teachers.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
Can
a
I ask another
fascinating
question?
subject. Yeah.
Okay. This is actually because I've heard from different mediums different answers. So I just want your
I'm
perspective.
sure mine will be different.
No, and you know what? Listen, and I really don't think there is a right or wrong. And anyway, but the question is, one of my spiritual teachers, she had always said, because she would do these galas, like you do, like on the stage and, messages all night long. And she would always say that when somebody loses a child, whether it's before the child is like if they miscarry or anything like that, or if the child passes early, that spirit stays with them on the other side and grows up and is always with them. But I've also heard that if a woman conceives but that baby doesn't come to full term, doesn't come to, isn't born, and then they get pregnant again, that same soul, it's that same soul reincarnating. It's like that soul is going to come back. It's not that a different soul comes in. Does that make sense?
Pick me. There's 2 questions there.
Yeah, I'd love answers to that
it's
and
2
anything else that
questions.
comes up.
Yeah. So the first one, James Van Praagh wrote a book about growing up in heaven. And I could never understand it because I thought, why do their children grow up and why do the older people don't grow up? So if I've got an 83-year-old lady here with me in the other world, I think, well, why aren't you coming through as 125 or something? Okay. So that was a big question I stumbled with. Do children grow up in the other world? Why do they grow up and Older people don't. Come on, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Doesn't it have the same, apply to the same? So I read for a lady one day, and she obviously had lost her daughter to the spirit world. And the girl presented to me on a swing with little braids, and she gave me the number 5. And I said to the mum, there was a little girl, she was on a swing, and she gave me the number 5. And her mum said she'd be 5 today. It was her birthday.
Oh.
So that opened up another world for me. And again, my UK mentor described it in a way to me that the importance of the family on the earth, it was very important for them to know that she would have been 5 today. So it's, maybe they've marked the calendar every day, they've lived every breath, they've lived every day, to keep her alive. It's hard for me to put that one into words, but do you understand it?
Yeah.
So my mentor explained to me it was really important for the family on the earth to know that she would be 5 today. Okay. It still doesn't really answer the question 100%. Okay, but there are some people that you read for, and when the children come through, they present that way. And my understanding is it's really important that they come through and get that message to the family left behind. Yeah. Miscarriages, terminations, stillborns. Again, my UK mentor and I used to dissect all these things. And one analogy, and I'll get back to the, coming back as the same. One analogy that sat right with me, because, you're sitting with the family and they've had a miscarriage, or the baby's, 3 weeks old and it's passed. I mean, come on, what answer do you give people? Sometimes there's not an answer to every question. There just isn't. But she described it in a way that sometimes souls only need to touch the earth for a short time. And they need 2 families. They need an earth family and they need a spirit family. And this is a really hard one to get your head around and tell someone that's been through that, that they can do more from that world for you than if they were here.
Correct.
Now that comes back to everything we've talked about today, the control, thinking that we're in control. So, how do you understand what I just said? Some people go through hell when they lose a child. They take drugs, they turn to alcohol, they can't get out of bed. I've seen it all. And then there's others that'll write books, or they'll work for, foundations of families that have lost children. So, would that have happened if they hadn't have experienced this? I don't like to get into the learnings, the lessons. I think that's quite a hard way to try and understand it. It doesn't fit with me. I'm a Pisces. I've got Pisces in my chart in 3 places. I feel the sorrows of the world. So when it comes to learnings and lessons, James Van Praag's very good at that. That's his path. Yeah. When you talk about, losing, miscarrying, and then falling pregnant again, and that same, I mean, I have heard that. But again, I try and the soul, when James wrote a book about the soul, he rang me and he said, honey, what do you think the soul is? And I said, you're asking me? Jesus, I'm stuck. I said, I'm stuck with who came up with the word soul. Who came up with the word soul? I said, you need to get back to me probably in about 10 years, because I'm thinking, who came up with the word soul, let alone what does it look like? What is it? And all the other questions. Yeah. There's aspects I feel of the soul, and you guys are very much into that, the aspects of the soul, or living, simultaneous lives. I've just recently experienced a life review on the earth. How everyone talks about we have a life review before we pass between the worlds? Well, recently I've been having my life played out in the dream state in full solid form. And I'm thinking, why are you showing me this? you know, am I going to pass? No one talks about having a life review while you're on the earth.
On the earth. Yeah.
So then, since this, of course, all these things have popped up, and I've been reading about all these things. Whereas the soul, of course, the soul knows when it's going to transition to the other world. Okay. And, is it possible to have a life review before you go to the other world? So I'm thinking, yes. Yeah,
So what do you
absolutely.
think the purpose of that would be? Having a life review?
For me to understand that the soul knows when it's going to pass. We don't really talk about it.
Mm.
Okay. Everyone talks about having a life review in that moment, in a millimeter of
Yeah.
a second before they go to the other world.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe because of the work that I do, my awareness, that's been brought into my psyche to investigate having a life review while you're still on the earth.
Mm.
It's a professor that wrote something about um, his interpretation of this that I've just stumbled on, of course. Um, and he talks about, that knowing. We don't talk about it as, a life review on the earth, but he talks about when we get to, 67, 69, obviously, there's two ways that our life can play out. One is we become very bitter and we don't forgive anybody, or the other one is
Yeah.
us wanting to mend everything and make
Yeah.
everything right before we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just his way. But mine was very different. Mine's been played out on pictures. I've talked to plenty of mediums that have never thought about it, never experienced it. And again, it's like, pick me, pick me. Yeah, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Do I know when I'm going to die? Well, no. But because I've had the life reviews are going to be soon, wow, these things that happen for us, there's no time in the other world when things are shown to us. So am I going to worry about it? No. I'm going to give
But
thanks
with the
for all the memories.
information,
Yeah,
but with the information that you have, could it be more the so that they've given you this information that so that is it about learning about the growth and expansion that you are having here, or could it be about
absolutely.
um yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. And my
yeah.
my editor that I'm meeting with tomorrow for my second book, she said to me, I think there might be something else you want to add. And I've actually just written down the life review while we're here on the earth and the physical
Wow.
body. So thanks, Amanda.
Okay.
Seriously, it's going to take a bit longer for that book to be finished. And that's obviously going to be the last
Wow.
chapter. Talking about writing a
Wow.
book, it has a life of its own, yeah. Um,
Interesting.
but getting back to Yana, like I'm not really focused on those in the other world, but hey, it's just a natural thing for me. And there has been a Nan with me the whole time we've been with yeah. But there is 6 people on a call, And I think you mentioned something before, Amanda, about having a fear of being on stage or something. I had a fear of public speaking my whole life. I had a fear of being seen. But when the spirit world came to me, and, all of those fears just, to work with the spirit world was far greater than any human fear. I had to get over everything. I presented on stage in front of thousands, 500 people, whatever, and here I
Mm,
am, the person in the human form thinking I got a fear of public speaking. But when the spirit world came and for me to work with them, I knew that I had to give up all of those fears. I had to serve them. I had to work with them. Yeah, they're just stories that we create,
mm,
all of those. But there has been a lady, an older lady, a Nan, and I've had all these beautiful soft colours when she's been coming close to me. And it's no wonder I picked the pink today, but there's pinks and there's lilacs. So I know that this Nan loved, nice things. And I know that she liked pastels and scarves. Okay. And I feel that there is a shorter lady with me, Nan, in the spirit world. Okay. But I also get a reference to a man in the spirit world, whether they're both connected at the moment, I'll probably know in a minute. And there was a connection to, someone with cancer, having cancer. Okay, and there's a J initial when I'm with the male side of the family. And then the lady, I felt that she was trying to impress upon me whether there was an M, a Mary, or a Margaret. Okay, so I'm just going to throw that out. Am I with you, Lauren? Yeah.
My
Yeah.
grandmother's
Oh,
name
that's
started with M. But
and
Rachel?
and so did mine. And my grandfather's name started with J.
Oh, there you
It's
go.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's
So,
interesting when we do group work,
mm,
because those in the other world all want to come and say hi. Okay, and it's not to say that your Nan's not there, Yana, because she just stepped in and came and touched your face. Okay, and I know that there's a great love there on a heart-to-heart level. She shows me the thread from her heart to your heart.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know that those are the bonds that are eternal. I know that they're the bonds that we work on. They're never broken. But when you're doing a group work, it intrigues me, how many people on the call can take the same information that I'm
Yeah.
bringing through, because collectively they will all come, and they'll all
Yeah.
want you to know that they're with you. So, there's a piece coming from each one. Yeah.
Mm.
But there's also a Velvet or a Valerie, a very interesting name, a V initial, a really unusual initial for me to get, that just came through. Anybody understand a Velvet, or a Valerie? I'm trying to Violet. Interesting initial. Anyway, it's not uncommon for everybody to stare at me. Because everybody's wanting a certain person to come, and then
Well, we're
there's
just
that
trying to process it.
Okay.
psychic amnesia sets in, and then 2 seconds later, it's like, oh yeah,
So then I have a question, and
yeah.
we're going to wrap this up because Marilyn, I selfishly want to keep you here all day. But
Gosh,
is
time has
there,
gone nowhere.
since there is all of these collective spirits that have come in, right? Essentially for all of us, is there a collective message for the group?
Ah, absolutely. And Rachel, where did Rachel go? She just dropped off. Seriously,
She'll
so
come back.
when you asked me that, I had the vision of the hand going like this. And to me, that's my understanding for everyone to know that, the way is clear. So what does that mean? Maybe somebody on the call's thinking about, wanting to go in a different direction. I think Rachel's already suggested that she's had an epiphany and all of that. Yeah, but I think for each and every one of you, there's something. One of you's a writing, journaling. I don't know whether you're thinking of putting a book together or something. Can I get the
Lauren.
thumbs up? Yeah. And there's a Nan in the spirit world. It's like very much go for it. So when I say collectively and you ask me, they say the way is clear.
Yeah.
I feel like crying. It's just stand in the light. Yeah, stand in the light. I hear the word believe. I hear the word trust. And I just hear, the soul evolving and the soul opening. Yeah. And when I get a sense of that, I feel that there's a little bit of fear here on the call as well, in letting the light in. Yeah, and that could mean a lot more to somebody than the way that I've just described it. Yeah. But the man in the spirit world that comes through, he's got a very firm hand. And, he explains, you only get sort of one life that, supposedly we remember. And he just says, go for it,
Mm.
for it. Yeah. And just one
Beautiful.
last thing for those that are watching or have lost loved ones, it's a really hard time for people on the earth. It's very real grief.
Mm.
Not to dismiss any part of, grief, but I know that those in the other world surround you when you lose a loved one. And when times are tough, they know you're going through hard times. And the man's reminded me, you draw on their strengths, their personalities, because you don't do things the way that they do things. But hey, you might have looked up to them and asked them for advice. Know that they're there.
That's
And it's
beautiful
okay.
advice.
And it's okay to do it their way. And if they dealt with situations with a firm hand and you're struggling and somebody is, and there's a whole lot of people around you wanting bits and pieces of everything, just draw on their personalities and their strength. Yeah, but very much the way's clear. Just stand in the light. And that's really interesting for me because, I don't sort of fluff things, no disrespect. But hey, if I see something, I call it just the way that it is. Yeah.
Thank you,
A
Marilyn.
lot of love.
Thank
What
you,
are you
Marilyn.
laughing at, Amanda?
Well,
Some people
I'm
say to
laughing.
me when I deliver messages, that's not very spiritual. And
Amanda
I
wants to be bad and not stand in the light.
No, because that's what we're about. That's what we're about. So that's why that expression has come through you. And so that makes even more sense because because sometimes when you do these kind of readings, things like that, terminologies will come out of you that you think, I don't speak like that. That's just not my stuff. And sometimes for me, I'd say to my team, don't make me say things like that because then I just don't sound like right. You know what I mean? But what it is that that's us. That's what we're doing. That's our work.
don't take the evidence. Just give what you get. Yeah.
Yeah,
And some people
yeah.
say that's not very spiritual, and I think, well, fudging it's spirit, not being spiritual. I mean, what's this whole concept about spirituality?
Yeah.
You know,
What does it mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you can. Those in the other
Thank
world do.
you.
No,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Marilyn.
thank each and every one of you. Gosh, it's been a pleasure, and we could
Thanks.
speak all day.
Okay, listen,
Yes.
Marilyn, can we get it on recording that you would love to come back because we would love to have you back?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe the time will change and it'll be a bit later or something. Yeah. Maybe we can pick a different subject. Yeah.
Okay, Marilyn,
Yeah.
why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you?
They can find me, Marilyn, Marilyn, Whall, WHALL.com.au. Yeah, and I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those things. Yeah, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your
lovely.
time, your space, memories. And Rachel, I hope you got your answers about everything that you brought to the table today. Yeah,
And look, honestly,
throw it up, girlfriend.
it's the same message over and over again for me that I
Throw it
seem to
up,
keep
girlfriend.
repeating. So thank you.
Just throw it up and just give thanks every minute of every day. Just gratitude and the bigger picture. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, amen. I love that. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to book a reading, a healing, a guided meditation session, join the Collective Community membership. We would love to have you. We'd love to share this experience with you. Go to yoursoulwisdomshow.com. You will find all the information and so much more. We appreciate you for allowing us to create this beautiful space, and we hope you have a blessed day. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.